Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Football Focus SG podcast with myself, Faiz, and our two usual mainstays, Hairun Nazri and Mr. JB. And this is a very special episode for today. We have two new guests coming into this podcast. We have Iqbal. Say hello to everyone, Iqbal.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, and also we have Mr. Loba Loba.
Hello, hello, hello.
All right. So, firstly, I want to thank everyone for watching this podcast and listening also to the show. Do follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Do also at the same time share, share, and subscribe into our channel. And hopefully, you guys enjoy the show. So, we have two new guests here. So, of course, we would like to introduce uh, our new guests and know a little bit more about themselves. So, we're going to start with you, Iqbal. Share with us. Who do you support? When do you start watching football, both locally and maybe internationally? Share with us a bit about yourself in terms of footballing side.
Oh, okay. Hi everyone. I support. I've the first competition actually I watched is in the 1982 World Cup in Spain.
Wow.
Okay, so yeah, okay. I think most of you all have not even been born yet. so so the country that I actually supported back then was West Germany
Where's
because I
Germany?
have
Oh.
yes my favorite player was back then was the captain Karl Heinz Rummenigge, number 11.
Ooh, yeah, very, very
Mm,
solid player
so,
there. But it's a
yeah,
lot of
but
different than Germany compared now.
yeah, of course. Then but back then, too bad. The first time that I supported Germany, West Germany, they lost in the final
Mm.
against Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a bit of heart pain, but I still support Germany all the way till I suppose uh, till until Lothar Matthäus was still playing.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. So when Germany was my country of support back then. So
Mm.
for
How about clubs? In
uh,
terms of clubs?
clubs back then the Singaporeans actually was exposed to Bundesliga back then.
Ah, okay.
So the club that back then you hear more of like uh, Borussia Mönchengladbach,
Mm.
Bayern Munich, then
Yeah.
Hamburg, all these clubs. So English football came in a bit later.
Ah, okay.
So maybe back then the exposed on TV was not
Wasn't
as
as
much
much, yeah.
as now.
Yeah,
Wasn't
that's
as much
true.
as now. So back then it was just like road to Wembley, all those things. So I supported Manchester United all the way
Ah,
since from 1982, from the year of Ron Atkinson.
wow.
So up till now, I am still a Red Devil.
Yes. Once a devil, always a devil, huh?
Yes, true enough.
And what about local? Like, I'm sure you support a local club back then, or do you still watch any
Mm,
local Premier League now?
good question. Actually, I supported Home United back then because I was from the
Ah,
police force.
no, okay.
So we were forced to go for matches at the old Jalan Besar Stadium.
Okay, okay.
So in that was in the year 1994, 95, I think 95,
Yeah,
where the S League started. It,
yes.
uh, it was also called a Zoo League because of the name of the club.
Mm,
Most of the animals associated with the clubs.
yes,
So
that's true.
so Home United was my first club that I actually support locally
Ah,
until they changed their name recently to
Lion City
Lion City
Steelers?
Steelers.
Yes.
I was disappointed actually.
Oh, okay. All right. That's why we're gonna get a bit of touch on that in our topic for today. But yeah, thanks for sharing with us about your clubs that you support and basically the timeline that you gave us. Most of us were not here or too young to remember. Yeah.
No,
Gonna move on to Mr. Loba. Introduce a little bit about yourself. When do you start watching football? Who do you support, local or international? Share with us a bit.
Okay, football. Actually, maybe I'm not like most of you here, where you guys started young and very passionate about football. to be honest, I started watching football very late
Very late.
because football wasn't that much of an interest for me, to be honest.
Oh,
Uh, whereby growing up, my kind of entertainment was very kampungish, where I go out, go to the field, catch a tadpole, whatever, spider, everything. Very old school kampung kind of play mindset. Football
yeah.
only came to me like I think during the 2002, 2003. That's
Hmm.
where I started watching Arsenal. I think that's the invisible year. I think, if I'm not
The
wrong.
Invisible of 2003, 2004 there.
Yeah. So from there, my passion, especially I was very impressed with. I think you know Thierry Henry. That was
Of
my
course.
like player, striker, and everything. So from there, that's where my passion started for football, and I started playing. In fact, I was playing, for leisure lah. But in terms of the team I support, to be honest, actually, I didn't know anything about English Premier League in the first place
Oh,
until
good.
2003, 2004. In fact, during my, I think, 12 years old, primary six, my
Yeah.
grandmother, or I think you guys know,
Yeah.
bought me a Manchester with a sharp logo with a
Ooh,
Beckham behind.
very controversial.
And I did not, I was like, wow, that was my first football jersey. To be honest, that was my
Whoa.
first ever. So I was like, wow, I didn't even know it was menu. I was like, I only knew Beckham. I was like, wow, Beckham, why, very good player and everything. I didn't know anything. But
Yeah.
the funny thing is that the jersey got lost during my, I think, primary school camp. So I
Ah.
guess it was a sign I wasn't supposed to be a menu fan.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
So
so
you have been an Arsenal fan, and like you've been supporting technically since 2003, 2004 up till this date, correct? Yeah. So, but
yeah.
do you basically feel that the back then, of course, I think we all can agree back then of football compared now, it's a lot of different. But what did you make about your basically ours because we both support Arsenal, right? So, what did you make about the current Arsenal now? Like in just brief sentence, short one, what do you think?
uh, very embarrassing
Not
to
bad.
even finish to be even finish even below Spurs, and I mean, that sucks
Yeah,
lah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping for the start of the season to be a better year and better transfers for us.
Yep.
So I'm still in apa? I'm still with Arteta, but let's see how long he has before
All right.
anything happen.
And in terms about
Oh,
locally, like
oh yeah,
local club.
yes. Local.
Hmm.
Because I stay just beside Bedok Stadium,
Ah,
so Bedok Stadium was Geylang.
Geylang.
So back then, I I think Iqbal mentioned where I think the zoo league with all the animals. So back then during my primary school, I still remember I had a pencil case with the Geylang pencil case, metal pencil case. I don't know if you guys ever seen it before. So most
Hmm.
of the
Is it
classmates
like the
use
metal
metal.
piece one?
Yes, the
Ah,
metal
okay,
part,
okay. I think I've seen
but it rusted like mad lah. After that, yeah. So I remember supporting Geylang, and of course I watched their match. But funny thing is because back then Bedok Stadium was not fence, so I didn't really pay the ticket, but I just climbed up the hill and watched.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
So and also because opposite Bedok Stadium there was Mukmin, so I will always get to see players down there
Yeah.
having their food before training or after game, everything. So Mukmin there was like quite a place for you to catch players being down there lah. So technically I uh, supported Geylang lah because just beside my house.
Yeah. I mean, technically it's a hometown, so it's quite
Yes.
understandable that you support Geylang as well. But do you still keep up with local football nowadays,
Local football,
or
not
is it
really
just as and
follow.
when?
As and when I have the time, especially now with work and everything and the kids. So when I have the time, I get Hougang match whatever. So I just watch as and when I can.
All right. Okay. All right. So we're gonna move on into the topic for today for our podcast. Thank you again for the introduction by you guys. So the topic that we're going to discuss is actually how the AFC Cup that was almost cancelled or not ready to happen, and now is already going to happen. And I believe the group draw has been made also already. It's just whether the time or whether they are able to continue with the tournament, because they did continue with Champions League, which is ongoing right now. And let's face it, Tampines isn't doing too well in terms of the table, but I do see a lot of positive signs. A lot of people say. So in terms of locally playing in this Champions League and AFC Cup, I want to ask you guys: do you guys actually feel that in a long run, like example, we see Lion City Sailors, the rebrand franchise, the expensive signings over what they did. Do you think that there will be one club from Singapore that can actually excel in this kind of tournament, like be whether AFC Cup or AFC Champions League? And not just Lion City Sailors, we can talk about Geylang, who is in AFC Cup. We can talk about Tampines. Do they actually have potential to go on in the long run, or any other club there? So I'm going to start with Harun Nazri first for this. I'm sure you've seen the news about AFC Cup as well. What do you think about the potential of Singapore clubs excelling in this kind of tournament?
First and foremost, hello everyone. It's good to see Iqbal and Mr. Loba joining us for tonight. It's brilliant to see new faces and new voices on our podcast. And to touch on your question, I think the AFC Cup has officially been cancelled for the ASEAN region. So clubs from Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, etc. It's already officially cancelled. But they're going to carry on with all the other regions along the AFC Cup. I think it's quite a waste because I think potentially it was Geylang International's first participation in the tournament for this season, and for it to get cancelled, I think they're gonna feel hard done by. But it is what it is. The pandemic and all, we cannot. It's beyond our control. I think. It is what it is. For to go along to your question with regards to whether our Singapore teams can do well in international, we call it international tournaments in the AFC Cup or AFC Champions League in the future. I think the standout answer will be Lion City Sailors with the budget that they have, with the new ownership, with the new management that has come into play. I don't think it's a question of whether they can do well in the tournament. I think the question should be, I think it's not even a question. I think it should be they must do well in such a competition with the budget that they have. We're talking millions and millions of dollars here, and I think this is the first time that a Singaporean team is exposed to such financial benefits in the game locally. So yes, we have Tampines Rovers in the AFC Champions League this season. Yes, results has not been good for the team, but from the experience gained for the team, I think it will benefit the players. And of course, it's not that they are playing totally bad. They are showing good performances as well. It's just unlucky in some games, and we can also put it down to not having the experience of participating in such a big tournament. I think it's an eye-opener for the players. It's an eye-opener for Coach Gavin. And it's also an eye-opener for us Singaporeans who are supporting local clubs. It's a good gauge for us to, I feel that as a coach myself, it is a good gauge for us to measure where we stand among all the Asian clubs or among the region. So I think the signs are good, even though Tampines Rovers are not getting the results as it is. But I think there are positive signs that we can take away from it. Barring the 9-0 result, I think that was a fluke, that was a one-off game. But I think potentially moving forward, there are positive signs, and we all as Singaporeans should be encouraged by what we see. So, yeah.
Perfect. Over to you, Mr. JD. I believe you yourself has watched a couple of Tampines Rovers matches in the AFC Champions League. And what do you think about Singaporean club chances in the future? you know, like, of course, like what Harunazi said is true, you know, like we should be aiming for the biggest and the highest of what we can achieve, every possible competition there is. But do you feel that, you know, with Lion City Sailors having like their own kind of budget that is strengthened by themselves, and do you think that that's a club that's actually gonna be representing Singapore in a way? Like, are they gonna be like the next big name in local that can carry the Singapore flag in this kind of international tournament?
Okay, so I believe there are two parts to your question. First, I think more like the tournament, how useful and whether in the future how is our local clubs gonna fare. And I think the second part is Lion City Sailors. So I'll touch on the first part first. I think for local clubs, let's be very frank here. I think the standard, if you want to compare with the bigger Asian market, I think we are still far, far behind. Because even the Southeast Asian realm also, when you talk about Southeast Asian football branding, people will talk about Thailand clubs. Sometimes some people even mention Philippine clubs as well. Yeah, so sadly, I think for us, we still have a lot of catching up to do in that sense. Future-wise, I think at the end of the day, it goes down to all the one at the top, basically the one sitting on the armchairs. It's how much they want to invest in our football, how much they can, I wouldn't say rebrand, but how much they can actually motivate our players, especially the fans, to bring in the fans again, get the right direction, get the right objective. At the end of the day, yes, in football, it's very apparent and obvious that you want to compete at the highest level, you want to join all the major tournaments. But unfortunately, like for example, Tempest Rovers in this current tournament now as we speak. For them, I feel that sometimes the fans are a bit more critical towards them, especially based on the scoreline and everything else. But looking at what we have, I feel that they have done quite well. That's what Aaron Nazri mentioned, barring the 9-year one-off. Yeah, so in that sense, I think Singapore can do better if we want to progress in the future. Lion City Sailors is a different breed altogether. It's almost like a brand now with the new Korean coach that they bring in, who have won this Champions League tournament cup before, and with the players that they get, Haris, and I'm sure they can spend more, no problem. So yeah, I think in terms of the next big thing to happen in Singapore is obviously on Lion City Sailors. All eyes will be on them, so they really have to step it up, and I hope that they can do better to promote our local football.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna move on to Iqbal. What do you think about Singaporean club chances in terms of the international competition? Now, of course, with that being said, I think among all of us, you're the most experienced watcher in the Singapore Premier League. You watched first before all of us. You've seen the Singapore then and now in terms of football. Maybe share with us a little bit. Singapore football actually progressing for you?
To tell you frankly, is Singapore football seems progressing one step forward, two step back.
So,
So,
so it's not really progressing then.
So there's no continuity in local football because we try to follow Brazilian style. Then after that, we try to follow a lot of other country style. Their ideas of how the league is supposed to be played, all those things. Yeah. So maybe we can never be at the level of English Premier League because they have been there for like 100 over years.
Yeah.
So we just take like Japanese Rovers when they bring in Jermaine Pennant.
Yeah.
So it's just like one off. So there's no continuity. So in football,
is it like lack of identity in Singapore football?
Yes, I suppose so. It's because if you were to say like you were to follow like English football, you were the places that you are born. Let's say you are born in Manchester, you grew up in Manchester, you learn to support the club. It's not like in Singapore. I was born in Toa Payoh.
Yeah.
Okay, Toa Payoh back then, Toa Payoh was Balestier, right? Balestier
Balestier Council,
United, I
yes.
suppose. No, back then was Balestier United at
Oh,
Toa Payoh
okay.
Stadium.
Okay.
Okay, so I do go there to watch. It's for free lah, I suppose, back then. So after that, when I got married, I shifted to Tampines, to Pasir Ris. There's no affiliation to the club. So
Yeah.
it's very difficult. Singapore can never have a fan base that is as good as in other European countries or even in Malaysia. You look at JDT.
Those kind of die-hard fans. Yeah.
Die-hard fan. That means you really support that only one club.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's very difficult in Singapore to follow the other ways of other leagues.
Yeah.
So like if you ask me if Singapore football moving forward, yes, but at times they just like what I say, like one step forward, two step back, one step forward, two step back.
Yeah, it's just not
So
at the pace of what we want, like it's very slow progression.
yes, the progression is very, very slow. Look at like Vietnamese league, even the Philippines, their
Yeah.
football is improving. But when we talk about our local football, it's not there yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I personally think that we are not going forward as fast as the fan want, because football is about results. We want results.
But would
So
you
without
consider our local football to be very far away from our neighboring countries like Malaysia, Thailand, and all? As of this
if
moment.
you are comparing the league, Malaysian league and Singapore S League, I think it's a bit, there is a gap lah.
There's a
They're
gap.
still not there yet.
How about international then?
Wow, if comparing Singapore football internationally, I think it'll be worse. They are not even.
Close? Yeah.
we can't even beat Philippines or maybe Vietnam. How can we? Back then we were talking about Thailand. But now look at Vietnam. Look at even Cambodia
Yeah.
and even Philippines. They are actually improving. No matter how they bring in English parentage to players in, especially the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
So far Singapore is not doing that yet.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe next time. Not there yet lah. We are
Not
not
at
there
the
yet.
moment, but it's still a work in progress, I would say. Mr. Loba,
Yes.
would you agree with what Iqbal said? Like, is it as of this moment, is Singapore football currently just one step forward, two step back, or is it just is all in the media maybe, or is it just our glory days is over? It's all in the past.
Right. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
For my take is yes. You can do as much. Additional training, going overseas, exposure, and everything like. But I think it boils down to the spectators and the fans. To me, it's the what do you call it? Fan experience. To me, infrastructure. To me, to get attraction for the locals. If you compare to our neighbors like GDT, you see how nice their infrastructure is, their stadium, everything, the club experience. That's what you want. Even let's say if the borders are open, I'm not surprised Singaporeans are gonna rush there to see and feel what it's like to be at JDT Stadium,
That's
where
true.
you have everything like almost to a point like how you have like Manchester, Arsenal, all that club experience. That's where you get attraction from your locals, and at the same time, that's where the money comes from. You get tickets,
That's true.
you get merchandise. That's
Yeah.
where you can pump all your revenue, return of investment and everything. You get tourist attraction, everything. So when there's tourists, I mean, like for us, of course when we go London and all, we want to visit those stadiums. It's an attraction. So
Yeah.
that's where you create the hype of the club for the fans to come, and from there you get like media marketing for each club. Let's say Tampines, Geylang, all having their own clubs and everything, and the attraction. So I feel it's more for the fans. Yes, you can improve on anything about soccer wise, everything. But if you don't get people to watch, then you have just an empty stadium.
That's
And
true.
maybe
That's
like
true.
maybe you have your diehard fans, but how long can it last? With let's like for example this season, Gilang started off quite well, and after the COVID, everything, almost every game, very
Yeah, it
disappointing.
kind of collapsed quite bad.
So I follow some of the pages and I see the number of crowd coming to even give support is getting lesser and lesser with the results and everything. Yeah, football is football, but again, club experience and infrastructure, stadium and what plays a part lah.
Mhm.
So to me, FAS, I think I don't know how they run the thing. I don't know. Maybe the board that's currently there, those people from back in the past. So there's no development. I feel it's just okay. Maybe we do a bit here, a bit there, but nothing's progressing. I don't feel football wise progressing, but in terms of attraction of locals and infrastructure, we are still there. Nothing.
Very behind in terms of that. Yeah. All right. So I have one question I would like to ask everyone here. So of course I'm gonna go around to ask one by one. Um, if you guys are appointed as a head of athletes, let's just put a scenario, all right? What is the first and the one thing that you guys would change in the Singapore football? All right. So let's just put a scenario that if you guys are the head of FAS, what's the one thing that you guys can change in Singapore football? Like a few of the example, like maybe Mr. Loba said, can be infrastructure. That's the first thing you guys look for. Can be maybe the fans experience. Can be maybe the style of play. Share with us a bit. So I'm gonna start with Mr. JB first for this. Mr. JB, if you're the head of FAS one day, what's the one thing that you would change?
All right. We've heard some interesting insight there, but I agree with some of it. So if I'm the head of FAS, the first thing I think I would do is abolish this all these names, all these street names, or Balestier, Geylang. I mean, Geylang United, you're playing in Bedok Stadium, which is not even geographically correct if you look at Google Maps. And then I believe last season and this season, Geylang United is sharing stadiums with Tampines Rovers and our Tampines Hub. So
Yeah.
to me, that's the very first thing I would get rid of, and that is change the name lah. Just give them some other names. That's one. And secondly, for me, it's also Young Lions. If you keep on calling them Young Lions, they won't improve. For me personally, because Young Lions now, people just see that club is just gonna lose 10 straight games or 20 straight games. Yeah, I'm okay to be last, but my job is to just play a bit, show my talent, hoping for the rest of the clubs above me to spot me and then sign me up, and then I move on from there. So there's no identity. Change the name, call it Singapore Sports School or whatever it is. Don't keep on pampering them with Young Lions, Young Lions. There's no affiliation at all. Young Lions is not even playing the national team to begin with. So yeah, so for me, I think I would
There
change the
are a
name.
few, but
That would be the very first one. Yep, correct. So I think the very first step for me is I will give them a brand new identity lah. I mean, we did change the name from S League to SPL, and not Scottish Premier League but Singapore Premier League. So why not we change the whole club names as well lah? Yeah, so that's my take. Yeah.
Right. Identity. That's a good shout there. Harun Nazri, how about you? Would you agree identity is a key one, that the first thing that you would change if you're the head of FAS?
Well, I do think that identity plays an important part in restructuring or rebuilding Singapore football. But in my view, I wouldn't go. Of course, that is part of the things that I will touch on. But number one thing for me, if I'm the head of FAS, first thing I'll do is I like to bring people, football people, in the governing body as well. Okay, you see, I'm not saying that people who are not involved in football don't know anything about football, because truth be told, on our podcast itself now, we have Iqbal and Mr. Loba. Even though they're not 100% into football, they do give good insights. As someone who's in the game, within the game, I feel that these are good insights, something that is out of the box, something that I do not think of. So there are good people who are with good intentions for Singapore football. But at the same time, I feel, okay, we take a look at, we take an example, if we look overseas, we take a look at Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich, before this, their CEO is the legend that Iqbal mentioned earlier, right? And now
Yeah.
it has been passed on to Oliver Khan, right? Football person. The sporting director is Hassan Salihamidzic, and etc. etc. They got football people running the club. Now Manchester United is trying to go that direction as well, with Darren Fletcher as the technical director, sporting director, etc. etc. Chelsea has Peter Cech, etc. etc. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll bring football people on board. Of course, not everyone in football has the capabilities to run an organization and all that. We need people within football who are also I don't want to use the term educated, but I'll just go down the road of getting people within football who cares about football, who wants the best intention of football. Because I'll just put it out there, I feel some of the people within the organizations right now don't have the best intention for Singapore football. They are just there for the namesake, or just to broaden, in a way, when you're applying for a job, when you put board member of FAS, I think it holds some pedigree when you apply for a job elsewhere. I think some of the people within the organization is doing that. I feel this is just my personal opinion. So I would want to get football people running the football for Singapore football. Yeah.
Okay, so basically yours is more of an internal change in the governed body. That's what you're looking for first.
Yep.
Okay. Over to you, Iqbal. And if you're the head of FAS and you've seen a lot of Singapore football, I'm sure you know a little bit more than us. Share with us, what's the first thing you change?
Well, maybe there are two things that I would like to change.
Okay.
First thing is about going down to the grassroots level.
Mm.
You know, the exposure about football to kids, school going kids. Take for example, Geylang International, they are playing in the East. So why not go to schools in the East, expose I know that because my son is playing football when he was in the primary school, there was Hafiz Mujad coming at times for his training, but I find it's not enough.
Yeah, not enough exposure. That's what
exposure. Then how many people in the East know about Geylang International, Tampines Rovers? So not enough. There's not enough exposure. Then the second thing that if given a chance, is about merchandising. There's lack of merchandising. Yes, the branding. From day one, when I went for the first game of Home United at the old Jalan Besar Stadium, they were selling jerseys just on a bench. What is that type of merchandising? So it's lacking merchandising.
Yeah.
One thing. So I think with merchandising you can generate money, but first the team must also improve. And like what Musharraf said, then there will be a more fan base. So it's still lacking. So these two things, I think one is the grassroots, another one is the merchandising. If I can
just to touch a little bit on what you're saying, merchandising, so that you can attract the crowd. And based on your experience, you was talking about the Singapore League back and now. What do you feel is the key reason over why you have fallen the number of fans watching or supporting Singapore League? What's the one thing that maybe feels like that Singapore football and the fans nowadays are not engaging with one another?
I think that it's lack of exposure. One thing. How many Singaporeans can really name football player playing for Tampines Rovers or maybe for Geylang International? How many people? Actually, if you ask me, I can't even name any. Back then, their names roll out from your mouth at any time. Players like Rafi Ali, Nazir Nasir, Lim Tong Hai, you name it, Ayong Pakwan, you name it, I name it. But now it's very lacking. So there is not much of exposure also. Generally in public, where nobody knows. If there's a football player that actually walks next to me, I wouldn't have known who is he also.
Yeah, that's true. So I think probably not many people will notice nowadays.
Yes, it's really lacking nowadays, I suppose.
Right. Over to you, Mr. Loba, head of FAS for the day. What's the first thing you achieve?
first day of being the FAS person, I go meet JDT.
Sorry, what?
I will go and meet TMJ first. Okay.
No, you bringing JDT
I
over.
mean, nah, just joking lah. But I mean, it's good to learn from others first before we start everything. But I mean, there are more to club. We're talking about FAS as a whole.
Yeah.
So I agree points like Iqbal say. Where we start with the grassroots. Like example, like you get them to go down, out players from each school. Like exactly Iqbal mentioned it. It was like, oh, that is exactly what I think also, because we need to go down to the schools and we get like maybe your apa each clubs having their own scouts or even coaches to look out for potential players
Yeah.
to scout them and get into the team. And at the same time as FAS, if I were in charge, I will probably get the match schedule timing.
Mm.
I think right now some days they are playing weekdays, and I'm not sure how the scheduling is. But
The
I mean,
schedule is a bit of a mix
you
of weekday, weekend.
yes, correct. So if you want people to come, but you are making it, the match timings are not comfortable for people to come,
Not
especially on the
consistent.
weekdays. Yes, you don't have like a consistent fixture of like, okay, at least we know every Saturday is game day, every Sunday is game day, example,
Yeah.
so that people who are legitly fans wants to watch football, they will come down. If you're gonna make like weekday in between, the interest won't be there.
Yeah.
Obviously people will be like, yeah, it's a weekday, I am finishing work late, I still have my family to go back. So
Yeah.
you make the timing comfortable for fans. That's why to me, my view is fans come first. You want to get the attraction for people to be interested, grassroots and everything, to get the scouts and everything. Merchandising is also one. For example, I remember, I think Decathlon, I think sponsored for Tampines once, where I think
Mm.
during Jermaine Pennant was around.
Yes, correct.
I still
Yeah.
remember, I went down to Decathlon to go and see Tampines Rovers shirt was sold out. I tell you, because I went with my friend, so he wanted to buy one. So I said, okay, let's go down. And every time we go down, it's sold out. So you see where there's a spark of interest, and you get local brands, or Decathlon or whatsoever, to sponsor everything. Merchandise plays a part, marketing. So you go around, you go Sempang, then you see guys wearing Tempest jersey and everything. You spark the interest. It's like a walking advertisement. So
Mm.
I want people to watch S League. So I have to spend a bit. I'm very marketing idea to me. I want everything for the fans first. You need to spark the interest first. You get the revenue, the money, and then all. Then whatever football that you want to do, I think we can do. It's just a matter of getting interest of fans to come down the stadium on a comfortable time for them to come and watch every single game and support us. So as a FAS, this is my point of view lah. Maybe not that strong, but I think it really will help to garner all the crowds.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I think pretty much all of everyone's insights of the FAS here, yeah, I can see a lot of things that we share, like identity by Mr. JD, merchandising, the grassroots, and also the internal governed body by Harunazri as well. Yeah, so I think all this all definitely kind of plays a part into getting what we want, what basically as a local fan would want in a Singapore league and Singapore football itself. But do you guys feel that with all these changes, how long? Just give me a brief answer of how long do you think this would take for Singapore to make those or meet those kind of expectations from fans? So I'm gonna start with Iqbal first. How long do you think Singapore will take to make like these kind of changes to meet the fan kind of expectations?
So, uh, what I think, because if you keep on changing the atas people,
Yeah,
that group of people keep on changing, so every time a new so-called CEO comes in, they
it's a
will
new
bring in
idea
the
comes in.
new idea comes in, new targets, new perspective. So to have a target, remember when Singapore was going to World Cup.
Yeah.
They are supposed to go for like what 2014 or something like that. I can't remember also the target, but we did not achieve because there is a change in management. So now the dream is only a dream. So if the first thing we need to have is actually a solid foundation as well as a solid peak, so that in order for us to achieve the target, so it could be 5 years, 10 years, or maybe another 5 World Cups later, maybe. Not in my time, maybe.
No, we hope not. All right, we hope they can definitely progress there. But Mr. Loba, how long do you think, if let's say as a FAS, if they were to hear these kind of insights from us, and if they were to implement these kind of changes, how long does it take for Singapore football to just get it going on again, to be start competitive?
A very good question. I think it will, as like Iqbal mentioned, like every time there's a new person, sports director whatsoever, there's new changes, new ideas. So there is no execution. So until we can get someone who is very strong to control FAS, a firm decision, and they have trust for him to follow through the plan, I think um, it's quite ambitious. I think maybe in 20 years time, if it follows through. If there is
If
always
it follows through, yeah.
yes, if there's always changes, then we are not going anywhere. Like Iqbal say, one step forward, two steps back. There's nothing going on. We can go about saying, "Whoa, our ambitious for goals for World Cup is this." Following year, like I think I saw an article last year saying that government saying World Cup is not their ambition, not their goal. So how are we going to supposed to go forward when even the government is saying that? I mean, I'm looking at the article here saying that in 6 March, FAS surprised that 2034 World Cup ambition not a goal for the government. You see what I mean? So where are we going actually? There's no direction. So whoever is in FAS now, like I think I understand what Harun Azri is saying. Maybe it's just that they are there for their portfolio, for their resume. So for them to jump to another job, they say I was once a board of director for FAS, but they didn't do anything. There's no follow through for any plans. So to me, yeah, if you get someone who's very strong, and I mean sometimes you need someone very nasty and decisive and a bit strong headed,
like a dictator a little bit.
yes, to push certain things, get things done. But until you don't you don't find that person, I don't think we're going anywhere. But once you do, and we give the full support for every clubs and everything, I think 10-20 years time is the duration that we can go through.
Right. Then over to you, Harun Nazri. I think Mr. Loba has mentioned a little bit about what you say is true there. Do you agree as well that it's going to take a very long time?
Well, for me, this is the question is very short, but it's quite a broad thing when you look at it, because I'll be very honest. I've been on the ground. I am currently on the ground as well as a football coach. I like to take a look at the technical aspect of it. So, in my honest opinion, having been around all over Singapore, watching talents, watching players as young as the ones in primary school, rest assured, we do have the talents. I see a lot of talents, but as what we football people know, or us who are interested in a local game know, this talent somehow along the way they fall on the wayside, on or by the side. Either via national service. There's often a distraction as we go along. So I wouldn't want to set a time frame. Earlier when you asked the question, the first thing that came up to my mind was 2034. And then Mr. Loba came out with an article saying that the government is not supportive of that idea. And, it makes it difficult, when we have two different entities. I won't say at loggerheads, but not agreeing on at certain aspects. Because at the end of the day, football is the game that we love and is the number one sport in the world. So, again, I mentioned, I'll just take a look at the technical aspect. First and foremost, before before we look at something big, I like to take a look at the smaller things first. So, we were once champions of Southeast Asia and all that. So I think for the current, okay, whether we like it or not, these are the people running our governing bodies. These are the people running Singapore football. So my question to them, rather than you come up with a bold statement saying 2034, that's the ultimate dream, that's the ultimate aim, why not you go down a step lower, 2 or 3 steps lower? Why not you come up with an aim of, you start to conquer Southeast Asia first. After you're ready, for sure, 2-3 years, or after maybe two editions of the Suzuki Cup, they call it nowadays, and then you focus on the Asian game, the continental game. Once you see, we don't have to look far. We just have to look at our neighbors, not Malaysia. We take a look at Vietnam and what they are doing with their football. They are going places. The last edition of the Asian Cup, they finished 4th, if I'm not wrong. And this is against the likes of Iran, Japan, China, and they finished 4th. And are you going to tell me that their infrastructure is better than us? From a technical aspect, I don't think so. I think we have better fields. And I think we have a lot more quality coaches. I might be wrong on that note, but we have all the football fields in Singapore. Yeah, you want to say, but Singapore has artificial fields, but it's still playable. We can still train kids. Are we doing enough on the grassroots levels? We have to take a look. We have to take a look at all these small details first. Conquer Southeast Asia, maybe 2 or 3 editions, and then look at the broader perspective. Can we challenge ourselves to compete at the Asian level, at the continental level? Then we can look beyond that. But in order for that to happen, I agree with Iqbal. Take a look at grassroots. I agree with Mr. Loba, where we must have someone who's strong-minded running the organization. And, there's a lot of points that have to come together in order for this to work. Because I once had a conversation with a friend from Thailand, and he questioned me. This is just to share with you guys. He questioned me, what's the difference between Thai players and Singapore players? And I cannot answer it because even though, again, the question was so short, but we are looking at broader things. And he answered me, and as a Singaporean, I was quite, a bit upset. He answered me. His answer was very simple. You don't have culture. His answer was, you don't have culture. And my take was, what do you mean we don't have culture? We have all sorts of culture in Singapore. But that is the problem. Do we have football culture in Singapore? That is a question that all of us should. You look at England. England has a football culture. It's coming home. That's where football originates and whatnot. But do we have that football culture? 1996, when they came out with the S League, it was great. We got all the big names coming in. But what happened after that? So it's a big thing that we can discuss. But yeah, if it's down to me, focus on Southeast Asia first, conquer, then focus on Asia, conquer. I won't say conquer because it's going to be difficult to conquer Asia, but you take it one step at a time. Rather than going 1 step forward, 2 steps back, let's try to take the small step, 1 step up, 1 step up, 1 step up, without falling backwards at all. I think that's my take. That's my answer for now.
Okay, over to you, Mr. JB. How long do you think it would take for FAS to actually implement or do any changes, or for us to actually progress forward?
Well, I think in terms of timeline, it's difficult to implement because like what so many of our guests mentioned, Arun Nazri, or all the insights are very, very useful. It's actually a broader spectrum. So for me, I don't really like to put the timeline also, say like Arun Nazri. But just one thing to touch, I think this whole World Cup 2034, World Cup 2010 in the past, all these are just branding. Personally, this is just riding on the World Cup hype.
Is it just a propaganda too?
Yeah, it is. It's just something just to make us feel good, just to show people that, hey, we have a target. But it's a very lazy effort. Let's say you just say that I want to go to the World Cup, but we don't see the plan.
Yeah.
We don't see the steps. It's like you saying you want to cook nasi lemak, but there's no ingredient for me. But you just keep on saying, okay, I'm going to do nasi lemak today. Come on.
Yeah.
So
and
to me,
we are just waiting for the nasi lemak then.
Yes, correct. And you will keep on waiting, and then you end up still just watching World Cup without your own country, and it doesn't benefit. For me right now, because Singapore in the past we have done quite a bit. I'm sure Iqbal's time, the glory days, the Malaysia Cup days, we were there. We were quite successful in terms of Southeast Asia lah. Don't talk about the world, but in terms of that, we have some form of identity. The players were superstars back then. We remember their names.
Yeah.
People are rushing towards stadium. They don't care how much the ticket prices are. The ticket release today only they go and buy. Right now the ticket is like $5, $8. I don't know. Again, that's for a whole different discussion. But for me, just to cut it short and sweet, I think rather than we focus our ambition on World Cup and all that, I agree with Harun Nazri. I think what I would rather see is SEA Games. I would rather we try and win SEA Games gold for Singapore football, something that we have never achieved yet. Because if let's say, with our up and coming young lions, so called, the next future generation,
Yeah.
is also going to struggle, then I think you can forget about the World Cup dream. Not trying to how to say paint a negative football, but let's be realistic here.
Yeah. I mean, it's the reality of it. I mean, we can't beat our neighboring countries. What are the chances of us?
So just try and get those cups that we have not won yet. We have done well in Suzuki Cup and all. Try and go for the SEA Games. Try that, and then we'll work from there. So yeah, that's my take.
All right. Thank you guys again so much for sharing your thoughts about specifically about local. But putting local aside, we have a tournament as well that was going on other than what Mr. JD suggests, SEA Games, which is Euros. And Euros has been pretty much the headline of football everywhere right now. We want to hear from the two new guests that have just come and arrived here. So I'm going to start with Mr. Loba first. Who do you support in this year's Euro, and which country would you consider the most surprising and the most disappointing?
For Euros, I supported France. Like any other Arsenal fan, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're out. I think that surprise for me is still Denmark.
Denmark, okay.
I feel maybe because of that incident, the spark of I don't know what happened. So I think that's what kept them going.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? I forgot.
Like which one is the most disappointing country of the tournament? Would you consider France the most disappointed one of the whole tournament?
No. Actually, I feel Portugal is the disappointment.
Oh, okay.
I expected Portugal to go further than where they are now.
Oh, okay.
I think I feel that they are actually a good squad, a strong squad. But I think, if you see the last game where they go down, I think they were 4-2, 5-2. I forgot. The last game that they went out was it?
The one that they were knocked out in round of 16 against Belgium. Yeah.
Yes, Belgium. Yes, Belgium. I was not really as much as people were going for Belgium, but I think for my prediction wise, Belgium wasn't a very strong. They are strong, but I feel that Portugal was the one that for me had more edge to go through.
Yeah.
With their experience in this Euro. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I guess as a defending champion of Euros,
yes, exactly. So exactly.
All right, now over to you, Iqbal. Which country do you support? Do you still support Germany for this tournament? Because you said West Germany earlier. But do you still support Germany for this tournament?
No, I stopped supporting Germany when Lothar Matthäus retired.
So who do you support then? Who do you watch, and who's the most surprising country of the tournament, and who's the most disappointing?
Actually, the most surprising team I think is Switzerland.
Switzerland, okay.
Yeah, Switzerland. So I think they have the never give up kind of attitude.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so but eventually
I mean, to be fair, they were
class.
only out by penalties also, which is like
Yeah,
very cruel
yeah,
way.
true enough. Yeah, I suppose we don't count penalties lah. So,
Yeah.
so we don't count penalties, right? So for the country that actually I supported is Italy.
Hmm.
Actually, I support Italy, Azuris. So
Yeah. Yes.
they have a mixture of very tall and big players. They have also a mixtures of very tiny players like Insigne. I think he's one of the shortest player in Euro.
Yeah.
I think according to my son is 1.65 or something like that.
Oh,
So
oh
he's very
really?
short. Yeah.
So are we all taller than
So
Insigne over here?
I suppose so. So so Italy has always has a mixture of senior players and new players coming in since
Yeah.
the year of since back down the histories like Dino Zoff, Paolo Rossi, all Bagomi,
Yeah.
Maldini, all these players. So they have a mixture. So I think uh, they were unlucky lah. Actually, they did well lah throughout this tournament.
Hmm.
So Italy for me.
And what about the most disappointing country that plays in this tournament? Which one would you consider that should have gone far, but it,
I think like what Mr. Lova say, I think it's Portugal.
Portugal
Because
also?
of yeah, I think it's because Portugal has Cristiano Ronaldo. So and there are also a lot of supporting players around him, like Fernandez, all those players. But uh, again, it's because they are defending champion. So our expectation is a bit higher. So
Yeah.
we thought that they could at least go to quarter final maybe.
Yeah.
That's the best they could go.
But to be fair, they were facing against Belgium as well, which is somewhat a strong side. But Mr. Loba said, I think on paper, Portugal may still have the edge. But
Yes, true.
given that they were coming out from the group of death as well, do you think that is just a tougher run for them? Or is it just they're not at their best?
I suppose when they won the tournament in 2016, right? I think luck was behind them.
Mm.
So they even scored 1-0 at the final. So,
Yeah.
and Ronaldo was out. So
Yeah, it was
I think
a
luck,
guy named Eder. So yeah.
Eder, yeah, he scored. So I think in Euro, I think we need luck as well.
Mm.
So Portugal out.
Okay, just a touch a bit, Harun Nazri and Mr. JB. What do you guys think? Like in the previous episode, you guys did share a bit about the surprises, but I believe we have two new surprises here. One says Switzerland, and Mr. Loba, I believe, said the surprising one was Denmark. Harun Nazri did mention about Spain together with Mr. JB. Do you guys agree that Switzerland and Denmark are overachieving in this tournament? Go ahead with maybe either one of you all can just start first.
Okay. I'll Nazi, you wanna go first?
Okay, Ken. Thank you. So I think I agree with Mr. Loba as well. Switzerland, when he say they had a never quit attitude, I think it boils around their captain, Granit Xhaka. We know Granit Xhaka as the hot-headed, a little bit kind of player, and he epitomes that kind of spirit together with Shaqiri as well. Shaqiri also has that kind of attitude, and I felt if Granit Xhaka was on the pitch for that match that they got knocked out, I think they would have stood a chance to go through. I feel. I think he was sorely missing for the squad for that match, and of course, I think all three of us can agree. Iqbal, Mr. Loba, and myself. Portugal, a bit disappointing as well from the get-go. And I also agree with we don't just speak about Cristiano. I think the players around him, like what Iqbal mentioned, is also true. They have talented players around. We can see how Bruno Fernandes was performing. He started the first two matches and then he ended up on the bench for the third, and then the round of 16, he wasn't even starting. That only shows his dip in form, if you could call it as such. And yeah, there was a player that was sorely missing. I don't know whether he was injured or whatnot. Podence, the player who was playing for Wolves, he wasn't even in the squad, if I'm not wrong. And I think that player could have provided a little bit of difference for the Portuguese side, but it is what it is. They're out. And just to share, I think I also mentioned Germany was quite a disappointment from the very start of the group stage up till the time that they were knocked out. It's as though they didn't get out from first gear. The way that they were performing. Yes, they
Which
had
is very
that.
surprising because it's Joachim's low final tournament.
Yeah,
And
true.
seem to be up for it.
And I think I wouldn't say that it's not a surprise, but everyone expects Germany to be up there among the best teams for the tournament. But if we take a look back at the major tournament that we had before this in the World Cup, I think it was the same case for German national team. They even lost to South Korea in the last edition of the World Cup. So I think the signs are there. And I think they were sorely missing Hansi Flick, the coach who left for Bayern Munich and now going to take over the national team. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with Mr. Loba, with Switzerland being one of the teams that surprised many together along with Denmark. And of course, agree with Iqbal as well. Portugal as one of the team who had quite a disappointing campaign with the amount of talented players that they had. Yeah.
Mr. JV, over to you. You did mention about Spain, you mentioned about Italy doing well, but at the same time, I think a lot of people say that they were kind of expected to be there. But not many people mention about Denmark or Switzerland. Would you agree with them?
Yeah, I mean, I must say Denmark, Switzerland, all these teams are usually the fearless nation, those kind of nation where you can only see the support from their home crowd, but in terms of the Asian crowd and all these, they are not the favorite. So yes, they are the underdogs, and yeah, like any football tournament, it's very refreshing to see other nations stepping it up and doing well. So yes, Denmark and Switzerland is definitely up to mark, and to me, the same can be said for Austria, and all these nations. Turkey is quite disappointing for me.
Yeah, Turkey is very disappointing.
Because yeah, I mean, they do have players that plays in Europe, top flight. But unfortunately, I think all of them kind of feel the mark. Actually, for me, the whole Euros, they can actually sum up. In short, I think all the young players, the so-called young stars like your Kylian Mbappe, your Phil Foden, your who's that guy from Germany, Jamal Musiala, all these players who is supposed to step up the mark, they didn't step up the plate. Even João Felix for Portugal also, I don't even remember, did he even play or
Yeah.
So again, so I think on that part, I think the so-called youngsters, the hot prospect, doesn't really step up the plate because I think Mbappe was on fire during the 2018 World Cup. That's where he put his name there. But all of a sudden, you see now for France, he barely stepped up. He even missed an opener. But again, it's football. Sometimes you have your good days, sometimes you have your bad days. Just to touch a bit on the French fans, especially you, Faiz and Mr. Loba. I think there are also some Arsenal fans who are also Belgium fans. I think you all should know why, because Thierry Henry is their assistant manager over there. But yeah, unfortunately, Belgium also follow the same road. So I think Belgium also can consider quite disappointing. Spain, on the other hand, can be quite disappointing as well because of the selection and all those big media talk about the fact that they actually didn't select any Real Madrid players. Just selecting quite a fair bit of, I wouldn't say popular names, but one name that came to mind right now is Pedri. Everyone is talking about him. He's only 18 years old, playing very well. Morata is also doing very well. So yeah, I think just to sum it up, there are a lot of surprises in this year's Euro. But the one that is more disappointing is not really the nation, but more like all these youngsters. Even Matthias Delight also got a red card sent off for Orani. So that's a bit disappointing as well.
All right. Okay, so just one last final question for you guys before we wrap things up and go on to the question of the day. As of this time of recording, of course, we have known that Italy is in the final and awaits the next semi-final, which is England against Denmark. So now I want you guys to give prediction time. Who's going to win the Euros? Italy is now in the final. It's up to you guys whether you want Italy versus England or Italy versus Denmark. But I just want one answer from everyone. Who's gonna win the Euros? So, gonna start with Mr. Loba.
I'll go with Italy.
Italy to
sure.
win.
Yeah, with the run that they have, I think Italy is
Stronger
gonna
than
go
the
on.
other two, England or Denmark.
Yeah, but I think final wise, I think England will be there, but they'll be there to just congratulate
Just clapping hands.
Italy. and they're going home.
And they're going home.
Yeah.
Okay, Iqbal, how about you? Who's gonna win the Euros?
Oh, football is coming Rome.
Coming Rome, Italy as well.
Yes.
But who do you think they will face in the final? As of this time of
Uh,
recording every year.
I think we are always exposed to England from our young times, but they have always disappointed us, I suppose, losing to penalties here and there.
Yeah.
But I really hope that they still go to the final, so that since they are playing in Wembley, let the fans get themselves happy a bit. 60,000 fans, they say. So
Yeah.
let them be happy for a while, for the maybe 120 minutes with penalties, and they lose again.
You mean disappointed in home ground?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
especially in the home.
Yeah. I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, I mean,
Southgate is
maybe
gonna
this might
cry.
be, a home advantage kind of situation, So, like, Haranazi, what about you? What do you think? Like, right now they're gonna play in Wembley, also in the final. Who's gonna win the Euros?
I think I agree with Iqbal when he say that we all grew up, in a way watching English football. And I mentioned this before, fairy tale ending. We would want Denmark. I think everyone would want Denmark to win for a fairy tale ending. But from a common sense standpoint, I feel, a bit, I want to say it's a bit painful for me to say it, but I think England is going to win it, man.
Ooh,
If we were to compare the firepower up front, I think out of the three teams, Italy, Denmark, England, in terms of firepower up front going forward, I think England is the one to beat. They have Harry Kane, Sterling, Jadon Sancho, they have Phil Foden. They have all the acumens or ingredients to win the Euros. If they don't, they'll be the laughing stock of the world, man. So yeah.
Home ground could be
Laughing stock,
Malaysia.
Yep.
Mr. JB, who's gonna win the Euros?
Anyone but England.
Anyone? England.
Anyone but England, man. I mean, for me, at the end of the day, sorry to say, yes, the hype is real. It's coming home, etc. Coincidentally, semi-finals and finals will be in Wembley. But like what Mr. Loba said, they're just going home. That's it. It's not coming home. They're just going home. Sadly, I really can't tell what. Of course, this is not hate lah. This is probably influenced by the media, because it's getting too noisy. It's coming home. It's coming home. But let's be real about it. I think Italy. That's why I mentioned earlier. I think Italy, they did not qualify for the 2018 World Cup. Now, for a football country like Italy, for you not to be in the World Cup back in 2018, it's criminal. It shouldn't happen. So for me, this is their only way to redeem themselves. Mancini looks good. He dressed good, I have to say, for his age. He really knows his team. He knows it well. After every, if you look at the post game, after the final whistle is blown, you see how he rallies his team. He stands in the center. He starts telling them, "This is not over. Let's move on to the next game. Let's not get so excited." So I like Italy from the get-go, and I think they are also enjoying the fact that from the start of the tournament, nobody actually mentioned about them so much. They are not really the favorites. They don't have your Ronaldos. They don't have all those names. So yes, I really feel that this is the time for them to redeem themselves and their fans. And I think yes, Italy will win the tournament for this year.
All right. Thank you guys so much for the prediction and all. But it looks like everyone going for Italy. Harnazi, maybe a little bit of mix of Italy or England, but he would love to see England fall also, I suppose. With that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for watching the Football Focus SG podcast. Do follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and do like, share, and subscribe. Now, before we end this podcast, the question of the day for you guys and the people that's watching or listening at home. I normally always ask a lot of questions regarding about Euros and international kind of question, but now I'm gonna stick to low. Who is your favorite Singaporean player? Can be of all time, can be current or past. Who is your favorite local Singaporean player of all time? The one that you can remember, the one that gives you good memories. Singapore players, which one is your favorite? I'm gonna go in mine. Most of my memories I can think of, the one that I can cheer on and always happy to see him around in that Singapore shirt, Alexander Dury. He's always there. He's always, despite his age, I salute his stamina and how much he can put in for the country, you know. He's been our front man, the spearhead to our, win us a few tournaments back then, you know, like Suzuki Cup back then and all, SEA Games and all. It gives me a lot of good memories with Alexander Dury. But now I'm gonna move to Mr. JD first. Who's your favorite local player, Singaporean player?
Wow, that's tough. Actually, one of my favorite players is actually Ahmad Latif. But I'm not sure whether he did. Yeah, but I'm not sure whether he did got selected. But I'll just say this one a close second. I have to say Noah Lamshah. Yes, he has his discipline records and everything else. Yes, I think that is a whole separate episode of a podcast. But if you just look at technical skills, in terms of scoring goals, he have no problem doing it, and he does it very very easy. So yes, if you just look at it from football standpoint, someone who can bang goals and the one that I clearly remember and followed is Noah Lamshah.
Nice. All right. Harun Nazri, over to you.
For mine, I think the name just got mentioned, and I had the privilege to play alongside him as well. Best player I've ever played with, hands down. And I think the best talent that this is my take again, the best talent that I feel Singapore has ever produced, Ahmad Latif. I have to go with Ahmad Latif. I don't know where he is now. I hope he is well. But I think he's one that got away from us. I think his name could have shone, further in our region. He did play out of Singapore for a bit, and having the privilege to play alongside him, watch him, learn from him, listen to him, talk to him. I think he's a good character to have in the team, and I think he's one that people should talk about more. I feel, yeah.
All right. Over to you, Mr. Loba. I see your reaction when the moment Mr. JB says his favorite player. What's going on there?
So I kind of knew he's gonna say Ahmad Latif somehow.
Okay.
Okay, but I think for me is actually Fazrul Nawaz.
Fazrul Nawaz?
Because yes, when I watch him play, I somehow can relate the way he plays to a lot of us as locals playing soccer as a whole lah. Because the way I mean, he's the best or he's even not good. I mean, he's average, but he's more like game to game basis. So he kind of like relates very much on how back then when I was playing with my friends and everything. So he relates more to me in terms of his style of play and his movements, and I just like the guy lah. I just like the guy how he plays lah.
That's good. That's good. I mean, it's a very interesting show. I don't think many people did mention his name as well, especially he did play a part in our national team and all, and it's a very good show. Iqbal, you're the last one to take, and you have come across so many Singaporean players across. Who's your favorite? I'm always curious to know.
Okay. You. So okay. For me, I think my take is to me he's the most complete defensive midfielder. He played during the Malaysia Cup. So his name is Muhammad Nazri Nasir.
Nazri Nasir. Yes.
Actually,
Very complete
actually he was
midfield. Yeah.
yes, he's a very complete defensive midfielder. So he was actually my classmate.
Oh, really?
He was my classmate. So the first time when I saw him before he went for the Go Chok Tong scheme to Czech Republic back then,
Ah,
it was in 1990. With
1990.
in 1990 before Rafi Ali went. So the first time when I saw him, I actually didn't know because I have not met him face to face.
Ah,
So when we were talking to him, then we were asking about, hey, what type of sports that you play? Then he told us he liked to swim. He was like, hey, so down to earth kind of person. So I like him playing football as well as in personal life. So he's a very down to earth, very humble guy, and we know that he got stroke recently. So
oh.
hopefully he's coping well with his illness now,
Mm.
and um, all the best to him lah now.
Yeah, that was a very nice touch. I mean, again, like what you said, yeah, get well soon, Nazrina say, of course, regarding about his illness. And on a side note, I did mention Alexander Durick, and I forgot that, yeah, he is kind of like import, but just in case, if anyone wondering, a pure local, I'm just going to give another word. I'm just going to give two names. One of them is I love the style of play, and one of them is I've met him personally and have a chat with him and took a picture with him once, and it was a great experience. Very nice, humble guy. So one of them, I would say my favorite is Indra Shadan. He gives me a lot of good memories, and also he's the only guy that scored against Man United. How can I not hate him? I mean, he scored against Man U. He doesn't score against Arsenal. I'm fine. But one more, the guy that I've met is Cairo Amri. Cairo Amri also is a very solid player. I had a chance to meet him and get to talk to him while he was playing for Tampines Rovers when I was only secondary 2 at a point of time. I believe I was 14, 15 years old. Had a bit of chat asking him about the game, and he's like very nice, very humble, share his opinion, and never seem to kind of like push people away from people asking him things, And yeah, Kai Ramri and Indra Shadan are my pretty much the two favorites. And with that being said, thank you so much again for you guys for watching all this. Again, do like, share, and subscribe. Do follow us, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Bye.